The gentleman yields back. Mr. Neguse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today. As we near the conclusion of this hearing, I think it'd be helpful to try to recenter the conversation on what I believe is the fundamental issue that we're discussing today, which is really freedom, the freedom for a woman to make her own health care decisions. That freedom is really at the core issue of what we're discussing today. My friends on the other side of the aisle like to say that there's too much government regulation when it comes to public health measures, and yet apparently would like to regulate intimate decisions like pregnancy and deprive women of the freedom to make their own health care decisions. As my colleague Representative Stanton said, the constitutional right to make an informed medical decision. And unfortunately, many Republicans have made it quite clear that when it comes to health and medical decisions, their beliefs matter more than the families that they claim to represent. I do think, I don't want to repeat much of what it's been a long hearing, of course, and a robust debate, and I thank all of the witnesses for their testimony today. I don't want to necessarily repeat the comments of my colleagues, but perhaps Mr. Johnson will engage me in a brief colloquy, as he hasn't had an opportunity to talk in quite some time.
Thank you.
You know, I guess the question I have, my understanding, and obviously the leaked opinion is not, we don't know whether or not that's a final opinion or not, but my understanding of your position is that you are supportive of a holding that enables the states to make determinations as to abortion regulations. Is that?
That's right. That was the case before Roe and before 73. That's right.
And given that, would you be supportive of a federal abortion ban?
There's no right to abortion in the Constitution. It's not in the text, the structure, the original meaning, intent, as the draft opinion points out very well. So when a right, as you well know, when a right is not included in the Constitution, the question falls to the people. And so they should make that decision at the closest level possible through their elected representatives. The states had that ability and did so before Roe, and that's where it'll happen again.
But what does that, I guess, what does that mean? Does that mean yes or no on the federal abortion ban?
Well, there'll be a lot of discussion about that, but no one's drawn that conclusion. I think, like in my state in Louisiana, when Roe is overturned, we become a 100% pro-life state because we did the heavy work when I was in the legislature there, putting it in the state statutes. We have a trigger clause. We amended our Constitution in 2020. So my state and I think 18 others will have that decision resolved, and then there'll be a very robust debate in the other states, and we'll see what happens.
Well, that, and I appreciate your answer. I would say, while I appreciate your articulation of Louisiana's construction of their abortion regulations, your colleagues, many of your colleagues on their side of the aisle, have been much more forward in acknowledging that they would like to see a federal abortion ban. And maybe Dr. Robinson can help me on this point, because I think that's part of what's obfuscated much of this debate, is this discussion that the potential Dobbs decision would essentially leave this matter to the states, which obscures the reality that many Republicans, including Senator McConnell, Leader McConnell in the Senate, have left the door open to a potential federal ban on abortion. And I guess, Dr. Robinson, maybe you can expound a bit about what that would mean for states like Colorado. As you may be aware, I represent the state of Colorado, and in Colorado, we have codified via state statute the right, the freedom to be able to make these healthcare decisions, as well as within the state constitution. But it seems pretty clear to me, I'd be interested in your thoughts, that this is not a matter that ultimately my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have any intent of leaving to the states.
From all of the legislation that has been passed over the last several years since I became a provider, it looks like it's very clear that the direction that they're trying to lead us in is for there to be no access to abortion care. I'm not a legal scholar, so as legislation passes, we have to constantly rely on attorneys who can give us guidance about how we can continue to care for patients. So my understanding is that the states that have protections in place for abortion care, then they will be overwhelmed with patients who are able to leave their communities to access care. And in a state like my own in Alabama, then people will no longer have access to that care.
I think that's correct. And of course, it also, if in fact my colleagues on their side of the aisle who believe that a federal abortion ban should be enacted at the federal level ultimately gain power of the federal government, then that, of course, would be potentially a ban nationwide. I'm running out of time. I'll just briefly say to Dr. Robinson, I also wanted to ask you about Black maternal health. The reality in the United States, as you know, we have the highest maternal mortality rate compared with other wealthy industrialized countries. And in addition, in particular, when it comes to Black women, the statistics in women of color are even worse. You, of course, are a doctor, and I know you're an expert in this area. I wonder if you might have any just final words or thoughts of wisdom as to what the Congress can do with respect to improving maternal health outcomes.
The gentleman's time has expired. The witness may answer the question.
Well, the things that we could do is that I encourage you to pass legislation that will protect access to abortion care, continue to center the people, the providers who need access to this care, and to just look at ways that we can expand access to health care, not looking at including reducing restrictions on insurance coverages for people to access the care that they need.
The time of the